Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. We definitely appreciate your time. We know there are many options out there. This is a good one for you today. We are going to talk about emptying your backpack. So your tip of the day, if you don't know what you're carrying, you're the worst enemy you have. Just so you're aware, this one is so intimately familiar to me that the only note that I took was that. That's literally all of my notes. Those of you who are following along, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Oh, you can't see it. There it is. Oh, that was it. You got to see it for a moment. That's it. The tip of the day is literally where I ended. If you don't know what you're carrying, you're the worst enemy you have. What does that mean? We talk about things like confirmation bias. We talk about communication. We talk about all kinds of therapeutic content. We also bring into it current social and cultural issues. And when we do that, it forces you, not because I'm forcing you, but if you're listening to it, you're put in a position where you probably do contemplate things that you have influence over or with. You may think about friendships. You may think about family. You may think about work. You may think about, am I going to go to the grocery store and buy the orange that I really want? You're going to think about things that you personally can influence. But what happens if you don't know what you're carrying? You have these blind spots, these biases that are all yours, and you don't know. From time to time in our lives, we have to unpack our pack and take a look at the stuff that we picked up when we were 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40, and ask ourselves really hard questions like, why am I carrying this? We can put it into a cultural context and we can say, why do we like the shoes that we like? Well, rewind. Once upon a time, for many of you, this is going to ring true. Once upon a time, there was a guy who had a lot of social influence, not political power, not a lot of forms of power, but a ton of social influence, or some people might call it social power, but it's really just influence. And he strapped on a pair of shoes and he walked onto a basketball court. And a bunch of kids all over the country saw them and were like, whoa, that's awesome. I want to have a pair of those Jordans. If we can't unpack our pack individually, how in the world are we going to unpack our pack socially or culturally? We won't. Straight up. Like that just won't happen. We see it today. We have these polarizing sides of debates, but so much so that we don't even know the crap we're carrying. The people who hate Donald Trump, most of them, they'll say, I hate him. I hate him. Oh, like he should die. Like that happens. It literally happens. If you don't believe me, oh my gosh, go on to, I'm going to look it up real quick. I forget, a blue sky. It's, he should die. I can't wait till he's dead. We're wishing death upon people. It's pure evil. Now, I'm not saying that we're better or worse off with him there, because that's not what this podcast is truly about. What I am saying, though, is there are people carrying stuff in their packs, and most of them don't even know what it is. They just don't. So, how do we unpack our pack? How do we help each other unpack their packs? Because I guarantee you're going to find a pair of dirty socks in there, and you're going to be like, why in the world am I carrying these nasty, smelly, moldy, disgusting things? And you should do that. You should definitely know what you're carrying, or you are your worst enemy. Not me, not somebody else, not Donald Trump or Joe Biden. You are your worst enemy. You and your naivete, your foolishness is your worst enemy. And to some degree, just to help you out here a little bit, we're all a little foolish. And if you're not starting with that premise that I am carrying crap I probably shouldn't, and I really truly want to find it and decide whether I'm going to keep carrying it, and if I do, I'm doing that on purpose, or set it down, leave it behind because it's not doing me any good. Now, I'm going to teach you how to do that on the individual level, but you, my friends, have to expand that and say, what do we need to do about that on the social level? How do we push this? Hey, let's get rid of things that we don't need. And I am going to address a little bit of that at the end on a cultural level. I'm going to address it through the lens of politics, which is just below culture, but it'll make sense. Okay, so we start with the individual level. How do we unpack our pack? Now, some of you are probably into this, some of you probably not. Oftentimes what I do is mindfulness. So I'll do say like, hey, take a deep breath. Okay, we might do square breathing. That would be take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. That, my friends, is called square breathing. Now, I don't really like, I don't get hung up on what your favorite breathing pattern is. Some people do the, there's so many different versions out there. But what matters to me when it comes to mindfulness is that you slow things down. You know, I've heard a lot of different versions of mindfulness, probably hundreds of versions of mindfulness at this point. And they're very effective in different scenarios. We can do the body scan. We can do the orb. We can do the introspective, where we go inside and we find temperatures or textures or colors. We can do, there's tons of them. We can also do projective mindfulness. And for the backpack, it's beautiful, in my opinion. Now, it's not going to work for all of you, but what we do is we imagine, we get into that slow breathing, you know, and for those of you who want to do this, you know, like, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you do this in less than 30 minutes, you are going too fast. That seems ridiculous, but when you really settle into it, 20, 30 minutes, you're probably in the right ballpark. You could go longer if you really want to. I would be careful to go not to go too long at first because it can get pretty emotionally challenging. If we have too much to pick from, it's kind of difficult. But you do you. I make recommendations, you make decisions. This is your life to live, not mine. I have my own I'm living. Okay, so what you do is you get into that deep, slow breathing pattern, you get yourself slowed down, and then you begin to project. You imagine for a moment that you're taking this backpack off of your back, you're placing it in front of you, doing the slow, deep breathing patterns as you go. And as you continue, you open up the backpack. That may be a drawstring, a zipper, a button, maybe all three. I don't know what kind of security devices you have on. You might have to undo a padlock. Some of you carry stuff that you just don't want to look at. So you have to undo the code, remove the padlock, like whatever. You do whatever it is that works for you. Then you open this thing up. And what I recommend to you is without looking in it, because hopefully in the mindfulness experience, your eyes are closed. You are just in this moment. You reach down into that backpack with your hands and you start to notice what's happening internally as you explore this backpack that you have been carrying. Now, sometimes it's helpful to narrow it down and say, I'm going to go through my anger backpack. Great. Put it in front of you, and you're just going to go through your anger backpack. Maybe you stick your hands in there, and it's as hot as crud. Or maybe it's as cold as can be. Right? But you're going through your anger backpack. Maybe it's good to go through your anxiety backpack, the backpack I carry with all of my anxieties, all the things I care about that I'm worried about getting wrong. Hello, anxiety. Or maybe I'm going to go through my family backpack. There's a lot of different ways to do this, folks. And I'm not going to go through every single one of them. What I'm going to say is if something just hit you, my money backpack, my politics backpack, my social influence backpack, my work backpack. If something in there is striking you as like, whoa, I got to hit that. I gotta open that thing up and I gotta take a look because I actually don't even know what I'm carrying when I go to work. Or I don't know what I'm carrying when I do my bills. Then pull that backpack out. Now, you could just do a backpack, your life backpack, the thing you've been carrying all along. Maybe this thing is big or little. You reach your hands down in there and you start to feel around, not with your eyes, but with your hands. You explore textures, temperatures. You start to explore what is this doing inside of me to be reaching into my backpack, not knowing for sure what I'm going to find. And you explore in this thing. And after a couple of minutes of exploring with your hands, you allow your hands. Remember, the deep, slow breathing should be going on here. You should be relaxed as much as you can because every time you feel anxious, you acknowledge that anxiety, or every time you feel fear, you acknowledge that fear. Every time you feel excitement, you acknowledge that excitement and you go back to your slow breath. And you reach around in this backpack until your hands settle on something. And this is where it gets real interesting. You pull that thing out of your backpack, noticing its temperature, texture, weight, shape, the whole thing. But we're not noticing with our eyes. Remember, taking the eyes out of it takes your visual cortex away. That's actually a good, helpful thing in this particular mindfulness experience. You explore this object without your eyes, keeping your eyes closed. You might imagine it in your mind, in your visual cortex a little bit, but that's not the goal. We're not looking at this per se. Matter of fact, keeping that visual cortex on the down low is really helpful for a while, if you can. Just noticing temperature, texture, weight, size, shape. Maybe noticing the color we would give it if our eyes were to open, but without opening our eyes in the experience. Meaning we say, ooh, It's warm. It feels like an orange red color, or it feels like a deep dark blue. It's cool. Something like that. Okay. So as we go, we explore this thing. But every single time we bounce from the thing we settled on. Now, it could be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be an object, it could be anything. This is the beauty of this particular exercise. And unpacking your pack is it takes the boundaries away. It puts us into a waking sleep-like state where we can explore it without rules. We can say it's huge, but I can hold it with my finger. Or it's tiny, but good Lordy, I can't even hold it. It's so heavy, right? The rules are gone, and we're just exploring what is being carried in this backpack. Then we then reflect on what's happening inside of us as we explore it. Now, this is an important part because it's projective, right? We're doing projective work. This is how we unpack our pack. What does this thing, this abstract or very real object that's in our mind, that's in our backpack, that we have been carrying, what does it mean to me? What is my experience of it? Does it make me happy, sad, mad, glad, afraid? Does it make me angry? Does it hurt? Does it feel good? And go through some of these experiences of like, wow, I have attached a lot to this thing. We do that. We naturally attach things to other things, folks. So you may have a whole slew of things come up for you. Then, as we're going through this, what we have to do then is say, okay, I am going to set that down next to me, not back in the backpack, because this creates a whole nother visceral reaction within us, depending on what we've pulled out of our pack. And if we're pulling out something that's exciting, it's like, I want to hurry up and get that back in my backpack. If we pulled out something scary, it's like, I think I might want to hide that back in my backpack, or I want to leave it behind, where we start to go through that part of the process, but we don't make that decision yet. We dig back. Once we've set it down, we dig back into our backpack. We pull out a second. Maximum, I would suggest, is a third thing. So I generally stop at 2. I like that number because it allows people to retain it later on after the experience is over. Of like, wait a minute, I said I'm going to set that down and leave it. Why did I pick it up again? Or I said I'm going to carry that, but I really feel like maybe I made the mistake of putting it back in my backpack. I'm probably supposed to unpack that and leave it behind, right? It allows us to do that in the aftermath of this experience. So then we take out the second object. We do exactly the same thing. We go nice and slow, deep breathing. We set it on the other side. We go hands-free, and we think about what it's like to have these two things outside of our backpack, no longer protected by us, vulnerable. Then we decide. Before we pick them up, we decide, am I going to put these things back? I may choose to put one back, both back. I may choose to put neither one of them back. Taking the slow, deep breaths and relaxing ourselves into it, we make a decision. And then we constantly check in as we're executing our decision. We pick them both up. Maybe we put one back. Maybe we keep one out. Maybe we don't even pick them up again. It's like, no, it's time. I'm not even gonna pick it up. It's not worth picking up again. I'm just gonna leave it right there. Whatever I decide to do, I do. Then I dig down as I was. I reach down and I secure my backpack with all the other stuff, knowing that I'm taking a bite. I am not trying to devour the entire elephant. Just one bite. This is the bite for today. Now, Once that's secure, we put it back on our back so that it's safe and secure right where we wanted it, right where we kept it. Take a couple deep breaths, open our eyes, and then the fun begins. In my world, this is where the fun begins. Now we know something that we've been carrying in our pack that may or may not have served us somewhere in time. Maybe we've decided we're going to carry it with us. Dirty socks. I guess I want a pair of dirty socks. I threw them back in the pack. What does that say about me? We let that sit and settle in us, that I made a conscious decision to either keep or leave behind whatever that was. It could be a quote. It could be an object. It could be a relationship. Doesn't mean we don't love them. To say, hey, I have to leave this behind, because carrying it is just a burden. It is not helpful. I will love them from a distance. I'm going to stop carrying them everywhere I go. That kind of stuff happens, folks. Now, we've gone through this process. We have made these decisions. We've unpacked the pack. When I tell you we cannot do this at the social and cultural level, I'm shifting gears, folks. Stay with me. We cannot do this at the social and cultural level if we don't know how to do it on an individual level. I mean it. You cannot do this at the social and cultural level if you do not know how to do it at the individual level. Hence, we have people carrying all kinds of extra baggage. Matter of fact, so much that I was involved in this conversation, and this was the inspiration for today's podcast, to be honest. I was involved in this conversation about, I'm not going to go into politics. At least I have no current plans or future plans of my knowledge that I'm going to do it. I do what the good Lord wants me to do. So if that changes, don't, you can try to bite my head off or whatever, but I always leave room for God to tell me, actually, Jeremiah, you need to do this. Okay. And if he says go, I'm going, but I have no intentions of going into politics. But I was asked, if you went into politics, what would you do? And I said flippantly, well, probably piss a lot of people off. And not because I want to, but because I wouldn't do things the way I'm seeing them done. And I sort of, as I was flippantly saying that, I had this, actually, I do know exactly what I would do. And people would probably not like it. I started thinking about all the laws that are on the books, the rules and regulations, the system being what the system is. And I started thinking, wait a minute, the founders created a minimalist view on government. Let's have it do as little as possible while still maintaining its responsibility, which is safety, security, and education, right? So you'd be talking about the military, the local police, fire, ambulatory services, maybe hospital services to some degree, maybe education, public education, free and fair public education kind of a thing. And that's really what the founders thought. They wanted the government to do as little as possible. And I thought, but we've gone way in the other direction to a maximalist position where it's, how much can the government do and how much money can we get to do it? I was like, sheesh. Okay. So the first thing that I would do is unpack our pack. That's it. And to be honest, it'd probably take me a year just to do that. What are you going to do for that first year? Unpack our pack. I'm going to pull up every rule, every law, everything and say, is this functional? Does it help? I'll probably put together teams of people. Just say, hey, I need some teams of people. You're going to go through this. I'm going to have multiple teams. This would drive people nuts. They'd be like, it's so wasteful. But is it? I'd say, like, what if I put together three teams per se? This is how you unpack your pack in a cultural, like political context. You put together several different teams and you give them the same job. Why would you have three teams do the same job? Because that's how you unpack a pack in a social and cultural context. You get these teams together and you say, here's what your mission is. You go to the other, and you don't even tell them that they're working on the same thing because it doesn't matter. You say, you're working on this. You go to this next team. You're working on this. You go to the next team. You're working on this. And their whole mission is to review everything that's on the books. Everything. From road maintenance to finances to literally everything. Review it all and create two piles. One pile is stuff that we think is good, useful, helpful information. Another pile that we see as wasteful, harmful, useless information. Now, in that pile, you might see things like, this was an interesting one. I was told at one point, and I looked it up, it was super interesting. There's still a law on the books in some states, law. This is a law that you have to drive with shoes on. Now, some of you are like, that's stupid. It wasn't when it was created, but you're right. It is now. It's useless now. At the time it was created, the pedals would get hot because their proximity to the engines and all the way that the cars were designed. So if you drove without shoes on and you switched from pushing the gas to touching the brake and the brake was hot and you reacted by pulling your foot off the brake, you'd cause an accident. Useful at one point in time. Useless at this point in time. So is it in the pile of this is useful? No, it was useful, but it needs to come out. This is something we take out of our pack. We leave it behind. But we do it the right way. We delete it from the system. We literally leave it behind. We don't just cover it with an executive order. We get rid of it so that when the next person comes in, that cumbersome, annoying, useless thing no longer even exists in the system. It's not deleting the system. It's deleting the useless things within the system. And there are lots of them. I would venture there are a ton of them. But the reason we have three different work groups doing it, because where they find common ground, we know we don't have to use and waste a lot of time. So the things that they find across the board, all three groups find useless. Well, that's a telling story. Those are things that need to go. The things that they all find useful. I'm going to put that. It doesn't mean I'm not going to review them myself. Because, in leadership, you got to do the hard work. You got to be able to read too. And then you got to be able to ask questions where you're naive or foolish. So I take all the ones that we know they think are good, put it in one pile, all three groups. All three groups think they know it is useless. And that's where I start. Where there's discrepancy, I'm going to come back to those. I'm going to make that pile in the middle of like, not sure. I'm going to get rid of, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all the things that are useless. Unpack the pack. Then I'm going to start working through the things they disagreed on and start trying to understand why did they disagree on these things? Because that's going to tell me a lot about the people, the time that I live in. Folks, that, my friends, is how you unpack the pack. And remember, the tip of the day pointed us to this right away. If you don't know what you're carrying, you're the worst enemy you have. These presidents over the last 30, 40 years, more and more, they go in and they put executive orders on top of things they don't like. But then the next president comes in, and what do? They removed the executive order, and the thing that president before them didn't like, it's still there. It's still wasting time, energy, and resources. It's still an excuse to hide things like money. It's still there wasting our time. All because they wanted to take a shortcut. Well, there are times as individuals, we need to do the long, hard work. There are times as a nation, as a country, as a social group, as a city, as a town, as a state, that we need to do the long, hard work. I'd propose to you that when we are presumably as divided as we say we are, which I actually don't think is true, that's a good time to unpack our pack. Now, will somebody ever come along and actually do that? I don't know. Will we ever vote them in? I don't know. I mean, if somebody came along and said what I just said, is that somebody you're going to vote for? That sounds really slow and cumbersome, and we always want the quick fix. We're a very immediate gratification kind of culture at the moment. But until we shift that, until we unpack our pack, slow down and do the hard work, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. I hope, folks, that this helped you individually. And I hope that it helped you understand our social and cultural dilemmas just a little bit better. Because around here, that's what we want to do. We aim to help. We want to make a difference, one piece at a time. And we think that today just might be one of those differences. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, do all of those things, and we'll see you next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.